What's going on, guys? Back again in the scale garage looking at the Redcat LowRider 64 Impala. I was checking out some videos. Jevries, who helped design this kit, has some tips and stuff to make it set lower. So we're going to look at doing some of that today. He said to get these shocks. These are WPL shocks. Took forever. Had to get them from China, of course. And modify them a little bit, make them work. So we're going to walk through that. He also did kind of a body drop on it, and I'm not sure about that yet. We're going to see what we get. All his lowriders are running his true scale wheels and tire. I don't know how these fit comparatively as far as height wise. These are those custom ones I found on eBay. No link. I know I get asked a bazillion times. The guy said he was going to sell more, and he hasn't listed any, so I'm not going to advertise for him because I didn't get any discount. Paid an arm and a leg for these. So yeah, don't know how it'll fit, but we do need to get this thing setting a little lower. I accidentally discovered something here. The way he body dropped his lowrider, he slid the rear above the rear mounts, and then he made a new mount to raise the front up so it set lower. I slid the rear above the mounts, and the front still fits the factory. So we've dropped the back here a little bit. The bottom edge of the body is now parallel with the frame, but it does stick up in the front a little bit still. So that might be an easy, free upgrade for some of you guys out there if you don't want to spend any money on this thing. Just to clarify about that, instead of the body setting on this edge here, I just slid it underneath. I had to work the light controller around the interior piece, but see, it sticks up just a little bit here with the body. Back here it's even. So that's one reason why I hate light kits. So now the body is attached to the chassis. Really don't want to fool with all that right now, so I've got to remove the knockoffs. I think I can do the front with the tires still on, but I got to take the rears off. The main issue in the rear is the tire is pretty much on the inner fender already, so I don't know how much drop we're going to gain. We might get 3mm, but it's still worth a shot. Every little bit counts. But I'm going to start up here up front. These shocks have some ridiculous eyelet on it that you do have to trim down, so that's going to be tedious. Up front you have to do the top and the bottom. In the rear you don't have to. You can just do the bottom only, it looks like. I'm going to start up front because that's going to be the most labor intensive. We are going to reuse the stock springs like Jevries did, and it's easy enough to swap out. They're the same diameter. Alright guys, so the only thing that sands off easier than Chinesium is these Stanley pliers. Got a nice rounded edge on that now. Luckily that stuff's not very hard. Jevries said to use a Dremel and cut it off, and toothpicks and a whole bunch of convoluted mess. And yeah, just put it on the bench grinder, and it didn't take very long at all. Did get a little hot. Even fake aluminum gets hot when you're cutting it. The dog got tired. Well, we've got quite a bit of drop out of this, but I'm looking underneath, and we still have a 1/4 inch between the cross member and the ground, and we have almost the same amount between the top of the tire and the inner fender. And the only thing I see that's limiting that is the inside of the inner fender. The control arm is resting on that. So I'm going to trim that out a little bit. And another mod that he recommended if you're using stock shocks, but I think if we clear this, we can use that as well. Where these arms are linked down below, you cut out part of the K-member basically, so the ball end on this cantilever arm can go all the way to the ground. And I think that'll get us where we need to go. So I'm going to start first. I'm going to take about a 1/4 inch out of the inside of here, let the control arms come up further. We'll see where that gets us. The shocks and springs are super stiff. Those springs are way too stiff. We'll have to see how it bounces. It might be good. It might be way too stiff. So I'm going to have to unplug the light kit and take the chassis in there to the Dremel, because I do need a Dremel for that, and we're going to grind some of that out. So that worked. I don't know, we're really not sticking through the bottom of the cross member, but we did it, whatever. The main difference was clearancing the inner fenders. Still got a little rough plastic on there I need to file off. We got some negative camber going on up front. K-member is on the ground. Awesome. So time to move to the rear. So Jevries' video, he put these shocks on, and he also made a longer servo horn. I don't really want to deal with the servo horn. I think my tires and wheels are taller than his, so we may end up having to cut the fenders. I'm in the mood to cut tonight, obviously. We've hacked this thing up after I swore I wouldn't. So I'm going to go ahead and swap out the shocks. I'm going to swap the springs over to the new shocks, put those on, and see what that gets us. Alright, so big problem. We're hitting the exhaust with our control arms. Our upper control arms, or a 4-link. So, easiest solution I see is to move those to the inside of the mount. Problem is that's going to screw our pinion angle up even worse, because this is bad as it sits low. And as it raises up, it stays pretty good. Well, stays okay. So, I got to pull these back tires off like I said earlier. I got to get the, there it is, little bitty Allen wrench, take these knockoffs off these custom wheels. Going to go ahead and swap the shocks, and then we'll readdress after that. Alright guys, made some good progress. I got the rear shocks on, and it does not set that low. Mainly on this side because the upper control arm is hitting a piece of, or a molding shape for the differential. You can see here the drive shaft's hitting it a little bit, and this side only is hitting it. It's offset just a hair. So we're getting a little bit more compression out of one side than the other, but it's pretty much sitting on the frame rail on this side, and the tire still spins. So unless we're going to do a big C-notch, there's not much more room to go. So I'm going to hit this with a Dremel, see if we can knock a few millimeters off of that, get it to set level. Alright guys, got that clearanced. Really probably should take a little more off, but it's setting pretty level. We're going to see what we got. We may have to come back and do the servo horns. Yeah, Bluetooth exhaust. Instead of trying to find links that fit and taking the whole rear suspension apart, I just clipped the tailpipes out. You're not going to see it in there anyway. You really don't see the tailpipes as it is, and the tips don't look very realistic anyway. So, not really worried about that. Got the space I needed out of it. So, put this thing back together and see if it sets low enough. Alright guys, so that's what we've got. It's not enough. The rear, I don't think is going down all the way because of the interior piece. So I'm going to pull that out here in a second and try that. The front is sitting on the crossmember on the ground. The tires are hitting the inner fender, so we're going to have to do the body drop thing. The rear I have underneath the body mount, not on top of it like it's supposed to be. So the rear is kind of already body dropped. I'm going to remove the interior. We'll see if that makes a difference. A little bit more. I messed my antennas up. Yeah. Oh, it's just the back is still setting high, and I think it's the wheel and tire combo. There's not much else we can do short of grinding into the chassis, so. Guys, that escalated quickly. A couple hours later, a lot of plastic shavings everywhere. So, had to notch the frame rail, which I need to clean up a little bit more. And I had to cut a hole in between the rear servos to clear the axle housing to come up higher. So we are pretty much bottomed out. There's not much more we can get. The lower 4-link arms were hitting the chassis, so I had to space those out, put on some angled RC 4-wheel drive rod ends. So let's flip it over and see if we actually got anything out of all that. Alright guys, got everything buttoned back up, put all the wire management back on, the brace over here. Had to do a lot of hacking. That's as low as we're going to get it without going even further. And I've been working on this for a while, so we're going to wrap it up here. See, we've got tires sitting on inner fenders just about all the way around. Still not going to lay body just because the tires and wheels are taller. So I have to brainstorm what's next. In hindsight, I feel kind of bad hacking this thing all up, but I mean, it is just a toy. I wasn't able to reinstall one of the wire clamps here because we cut that section out for the rear differential to stick. Kind of see that there. It's not the cleanest cut, and I did kind of cut the plastic of this servo over here a little bit, but it's still fine. Really need to strip it all apart and clean it all up and maybe clearance a little bit more, but not in the mood to unwire the whole thing now. So front I'm happy with. Front is laying excellent. Like I said, that cross member is right on the ground. The tires are right in the fenders. So the only thing left to do is to see if this still hops. One adverse effect here with these shocks and lowering everything, the interior has those two humps in the rear deck lid. or the rear window shelf, and those are sticking up higher than that now. So there's not really a way around that unless we change the angle of the arms maybe, but there's not enough room in that interior. So now you can see the shocks in the back window. It is what it is. Like I said, I've never been a huge fan of Lexan. That body's pretty nice, but I don't know. I think this chassis and this setup's destined for greater things down the road. As we experiment and destroy it further, we'll find out where that is. So I'm going to do a quick test, get the body back on, and we'll see how it hops now with these new shocks. Alright, so I did have to make one more change. With it powered on, the servos do stand up a little bit higher, and we're back at a gap here in the rear. So, needed to adjust the servo horns, and instead of ripping all this out, I went ahead and just opened up this hole in here. The shock was hitting it a little bit, the edge of it. It was only open here in the front for the shock to come through. So I've clearanced it back. I can actually get a tool in there and remove the servo horn. We're going to clock those up just a little bit more, and that should give us our extra drop. Because see, when it's powered off, we can go down a lot further. So I'm going to clock those real quick, turn it back on, and we'll go from there. So made a little bit of progress. A lot of cutting. I got a mess. There's black plastic everywhere in the shop. But I got the rear to stay down. The servo arms are in the rear window. Slams to the ground now. Not quite as much lift, but I think it's a little bit more realistic. I guess the battery I'd been running in there was low because I forgot how well this hopped. Now I got that steering issue fixed too. I did that a couple videos ago. Still heavy in the back, so it doesn't want to turn on these hard surfaces, but it's a lot better than it was. Oop, we just hit a Coke machine. But guys, I'm gonna wrap this video up. Spent all night out here last night having a good time with this and getting back into the groove, hacking stuff and all that. I don't think I took a good before picture, so y'all be the judge. We made a little bit of progress. I think we really need to do something different with the rear frame. It's kind of maxed out with what it is, so I think there's going to be a whole re-engineer involved. We need different rails, we need servo locations changed. What do we really want to do with this thing? I mean, it's still fun to come out here and hop it. So, I don't know if I'm ready to completely throw the chassis in the parts bin and build something new with it, but it's coming. We'll get there eventually, but appreciate you guys watching. Like, subscribe, and share if you like the content. If you want to support the channel, I've got some merchandise available below. And follow along on Instagram and stuff for sneak peeks of videos to come. But keep a scale. I'll see y'all in the next video.